De La Soul,
Nice.
who's super fun, super fun stuff.
I don't know who either of these.
They're the
people
guys who did Feel Good Inc. with the Gorillas.
Oh, okay.
They're the rap group
Cool.
on that. They're a lot. They're just a lot of fun. If you want to like, hey, I wish there was just like a really weird, fun, creative hip hop group out there that just makes a bunch of silly, weird songs. That's them. You know, yeah.
And Big who?
Big Brady's my friend. I got Big Brady to go listen to.
Big Brady likes that kind of music.
No, he does. Like, Big Brady doesn't. But Big Brady likes that record.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so, okay, are we live currently? We're good to go? Welcome to Matt and Mike's Matinee. We're going to be doing a review of the movie Novacaine today, the second review of Novacaine. The first video has been lost to the glitch zone, as you know. So
It's out there though.
Yeah.
Like if we wanted to, but it did echo.
It's really bad.
It's really bad.
So we're gonna do a little bit of a redo here. So I guess we'll start with you. So Novacaine, what did you know about the movie going into it? Anything?
Absolutely nothing other than what I saw on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the clips that were advertising it. Hey, here's a guy, and he cannot feel pain, and he's going to rescue somebody.
Right. Yeah, taken with tranquilizers.
Yes.
We can't feel anything.
Yes.
And that's basically all I knew. We saw the trailers for it in several movies that we went out to go see together, but that's it. And outside of that, I'm in the same boat. So that being said, how'd you feel about it?
So I thought it was a really fun movie. I gave it a 6. It wasn't super duper over the top, but they took their niche idea and they absolutely ran with it.
Yeah.
There were also some scenes in there that were just not my type of thing. So it was a lot more gory, but I was expecting it going into it because that is the biggest ploy is like, how far can we get when you can't feel pain?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I feel about the same way. I give it a 7, but realistically, I'd probably be around a 6.5 if we started introducing halves. Just simply because if this movie didn't have its gimmick, if it didn't have the man can't feel pain gimmick, it would just be a very by the numbers action movie. It would just be something you would see on TV on a channel. You'd come in, you'd watch it on like Spike or TNT or something, and you would probably forget about it. But because they have this gimmick that they're riding on, it makes it sticks in your mind a little bit more. And I think that the as you said, the gore and the violence just makes it a little bit more. It makes it stick to your ribs a little bit more. The directors of the movie, the little duo, which is Dan Burke and Robert Olson, they pretty much only directed horror movies before this, and I think that. Like those elements definitely made their way into the movie,
Absolutely,
especially as it ramps up. So, and I think that the movie would be like it would be the case that I probably would have skipped over this, like as far as a theater experience, because we had wondered if it was worth going to see in the theater. So we had talked about it because it's so. But while it is like gory and it's kind of fun, it's kind of splattery, you were just like, does it justify like paying the extra price tag to go see it in the theaters versus waiting for it to watch?
I think it does.
Yeah,
I definitely think that the experience you're getting in the theater is a lot more powerful than what you would be getting at home.
Right.
That being said, this is a movie that I would definitely show people who are into this kind of thing.
Right.
Especially with the twist that goes on.
Yeah.
It made the movie a lot more interesting for the first watch.
Yes.
Although, if you know what's coming up, it makes it a completely different movie from the very beginning.
I agree. And I think it comes down to the movie's biggest strengths is not its acting. It's not its character work. It's not its acting. It's not its directing. All of these things are competent, but and specifically I get into the directing in a second, but the first half of the movie is very much reliant on its character work, its dialogue and stuff like that. And you're kind of, while you don't really know where the movie's going, you can kind of like forgive it because it's kind of like it's ramping up and it's kind of interesting because it takes so much time to get to the action sequences in the movie because it really wants to take time establishing its characters, which I did appreciate, which it was kind of strange, but going back to it and only relying on those elements, it probably would make the movie weaker on repeat watches.
Absolutely.
Because that's not its strong suit, and there's also not like as much payoff as there probably should be with some of the stuff established in the first part of the movie,
because a lot of it is shock and awe. With
yeah.
each scene you can kind of see there's something new that they're trying and there's something that they're portraying. Just like in a horror movie, how many ways can we get somebody to bleed?
And it does that, but then it just kind of most of the relationships set up they do at the beginning of the movie doesn't have as much payoff as it kind of just gets derailed a little bit, which is fine. I will say that is the direction of the film is interesting. The camera work is not really flashy. It gets the job done, but I will say that it does film the action sequences well. It really wants you to hone in on the violence, hone in on the impact of the blows, the impact of the cuts, the and everything. And I think that's once again from the horror background, they want you to focus on those things. Exactly. But it also is way preferable to me than the shaky cam action movies of the past, and also the movies where the camera maybe is really pushed up, close and personal, almost where the action scenes are almost like knife fights in phone booths, but they're not in a phone booth. They're just in they're in a
street or something.
Street or in a room, but it's still being shot that way, where the camera's pushed up where you can't really see what's going on. This movie smartly pulls it back to let you see everything, and I did appreciate that, especially coming from my history of watching Jackie Chan movies when I was younger, because Jackie Chan directs action the same way, where he wants you to see the art of the scene, and so I can say that, and that on that front it delivers there.
If you think about it, that very first scene in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Was very much, what is he going to use? Where is he going to go next?
Yeah.
How is he going to hurt himself this time?
Yeah, and it really, and it frames, it sets up things with the camera too, where it's it'll show something that's going to be used in just in a couple seconds. He's going to use that frying pan.
Plot point.
He's going to use that gun inside the fryer, or whatever. And I think that it works really well because it sets up expectations for the audience, and then it does actually deliver on those expectations. So
absolutely.
But at the same time, I don't think that I can't say that it's the most cutting edge action film I've ever seen. I think that the cinematography doesn't really elevate itself to the level of an Old Boy or something where it's really slick and something I've never seen done. And I don't think that and as I said, the audio visuals from the film, I don't know if they're quite as much of a draw as a movie like Dunkirk to bring people into those theaters. But there is a couple moments in the movie that are that seeing them in the theater was interesting, the jump scare impact, hit to this character as he's and which we'll get to in the spoiler section. But that made me jump out of my seat in the theater, and everybody,
all of us did.
And there's just some hits that are so hard and so in that movie that I think it's kind of fun to see it in that setting with everything cranked.
With the feeling of the bass and the loudness and how quiet it can get. Yeah. And just the lighting. The theater's where to see it.
Yeah. I kind of agree, because it makes an experience.
Yeah.
Where I think maybe on the TV it would just feel a little bit more humdrum.
I mean, you could have a good setup at home, and then it would be fine.
Yeah. True.
Still.
True. I guess the last thing we'll talk about as far as non-spoilers is the use of slow-mo. How'd you feel about the use of slow-mo in the movie?
There were a lot of points where it was just slow glass shatters is pretty film work. Yeah. And I'm just we've seen that a couple of times. You're not really telling us anything different other than just trying to do something that most people have already done
right before. And I think that it makes it every time it uses slow-mo, it just feels funny. And I don't know if it was if the directors were meaning for it to be funny. It might just be me, where slow-mo's been ruined.
Yeah.
Well, I can't take slow-mo seriously.
Yeah.
It's because the Matrix spoofs. I mean, it just makes it where all the Bayham movies where almost like every single scene is in slow-mo. And it just makes me laugh every single time I see it, but which I guess is, I don't know.
It's probably what they were going for. There is a comedic undertone
to it,
to this movie that to Novacaine that just keeps you trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think but it's fine. At the end of the day, it's fine. It might be a little bit overused. I think they might probably used it one too many times. If it was like comedic,
Yeah.
eventually there's a point where I'm like,
So Novacaine, it's a fun ride.
yeah,
Expect a lot of gore.
yeah,
Expect it to be a different movie halfway through, and then don't expect to watch it again and it feel like the same movie.
right,
Which kind of loses points for me because I won't get that same impact.
right.
It's
Kind of like the.
But watching it the first time was really crazy.
Yeah, it was really fun, and that's why that's why I'm kind of going to stick it to 7 for me, just because of the experience of watching it, like the arc of the setup, and then it swinging, and then it getting like so over the top.
I think we're so ready.
It's such a fun experience that I think that it could sit as a 7 because I want other people to experience it. And I think even if it's only a one-time watch, like that experience is so much of like kind of like a ride.
Yeah,
it just feels right by the time it's over, and I don't want to like give it lower than that for that reason.
Definitely.
But I will agree. The last thing before we move on about you talk about it feeling different. I think it's also because the comedic tone is different from the first half to the second half. Because the first half is like kind of like a cringe romantic kind of comedy style, as it kind of like sets up the relationship between the Nathan and the girlfriend character that he ends up trying to save in the movie.
Yeah.
And Sherry, and then as it moves on, once the action starts, and then it starts feeling kind of like a slapstick, violent, like kind of
how far can we push
action movie, and it's fine. It's still fun.
It's great,
but it does feel like there's a little bit of a tonal shift there. That it's just a little maybe just a little uneven because it's just. But not so much that it matters in this movie.
If you think about it, like the way that it feels to be Novacaine, right? Everything is so jarring and stuff like that. I wonder if they were wanting to do that.
Yeah.
To jar the viewers into kind of like saying, "Oh, what are we actually doing now?"
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's such an interesting little movie for what it is. But I think we should move. I think we should move into spoilers. We can kind of talk about some of the stuff in the plot, and then kind of get into some of those action scenes.
We're itching to dive into the step-by-step breakdown. Are you ready?
So we'll see you in the spoiler zone.
So spoilers coming up. You've been warned. So Matt, let's start it out for me, buddy.
Yeah. So basically, we have the character Nathan, who's played by Jack Quaid, and Jack did a good job.
Great job.
Yep, in the movie. Jack works at this bank, and he just kind of lives. He's just kind of a normal, bank teller kind of guy.
He's a manager.
But manager. Yeah,
he's
that's
an
right.
assistant manager.
Assistant manager. Yes. So, but it kind of opens up we kind of get like a little bit about him, where there's this one guy named Earl who comes in, like this old man who's kind of dealing with
Earl.
He's dealing with some financial issues. He doesn't want his shop to close because his wife passed away, and it kind of opens up with a scene that's kind of similar to like The Incredibles, where the Nathan ends up like granting this guy a little bit of a grace, like he's not supposed to, but he's kind of like looks back behind his shoulder and is like, hey, what we can do is we can just not look at your file for a while.
You also have to remember it's Christmas time.
Yeah, it's Christmas.
So he's sitting there saying, Nathan's like, Earl, we'll go ahead and hide these papers for a minute, and I'll process them after Christmas, so that you have a little bit more time to maybe catch up.
Right. Yes. And then it kind of establishes Nathan as like he's like our heart of gold protagonist, like our guy. He's going to try to do the right thing, regardless of what the consequences
for
are.
The people.
And that's him through the movie. And so that's kind of the establishing thing. We get him, and then we kind of get introduced to Sherry, the in a scene where they meet in the office break room. She ends up bumping into him. He ends up spilling coffee all over his hands.
Yes.
So he ends up getting burned really, really bad. But Sherry but that's not what freaks him out. And Sherry looks and oh man, you got terrible burns. His hands are getting all red and stuff. But he, of course, he can't feel any pain. He has a condition, SEPA, where he can't feel anything. So, but that's not what freaks him out. And so she's kind of trying to help him. But his shirt rides up a little bit and starts showing off some of these tattoos that he has, and that's what freaks him out. And he's trying to
not the burns or the pain.
Yeah, not the burns. And I think I think that it's not like a office secret that he has this condition, which is probably why he's not that concerned
worried about that.
Because in the office you see every desk has these little tennis balls attached to the sides. That way he can't bump into it and injure himself or puncture himself on anything. And there's a lot of little things in the office where there's set up for him to be safe.
I don't know though. Sherry, the way that she acts, doesn't act like she knew that.
Right.
Because because in the next scene, which we're about to get to, she asks about it.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but it would just be it'd beg the question. Maybe she just thought he was a weirdo with all the tennis balls. Just never thought to ask about it.
She never looked into it.
But anyway, so
she had an ulterior motive.
Yes, it turns out she has an ulterior motive. So she basically meets him later and apologizes and they get a date together, and so they end up kind of over a series of a couple dates. The first one, they meet at this little place to have some pie and some coffee, where we learn he's never ate pie because he doesn't eat solid foods because he's afraid he's going to bite into his tongue and bite a piece of his tongue off. And then she's like, "No, you're not living life." And he does it, and he's just like, "Oh man, I've been missing out," and
she's like, "I'm here to help you if anything happens."
Right, and
he's so over the top for Sherry.
Yeah, he is,
which is weird because it's his coworker and someone who's technically under his management.
Yeah,
I'm like, ugh, this is a little cringe.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, probably. But
it's still adorable when
she's
she's like, because you're sitting there, you're enthralled. It's like, now this is a love story because we're thinking it's like Taken, where this guy loves this woman loves this guy, and we're gonna go Mario and Princess Peach this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which is not what happens.
No, it's not.
Not what happens. Oh, God, almost. Yeah, we'll get there. But so, and then the second date, they end up meeting at this bar, and then we learn a little bit about Novacaine's history. We learned that he got the nickname because of a bunch of bullies. They used to pick on him. They meet one of his old childhood bullies there, and he ends up going to the restroom because he has to time it. He has a timer on it telling him when to use the restroom, because if he doesn't use the restroom, his bladder will explode.
Which is a good point to bring up because of a later scene, but if he has to have a timer because he can't feel the pressure of his bladder, how does that next scene work?
Yeah, right.
Which
I know.
It's something to really think about when we get to it.
Yeah, but so he ends up going to the restroom, and he comes back and he finds Sherry is kind of being all buddy to the school bully,
flirting
with him,
which should have been red flag number one.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But you, the audience, feel kind of weird, and just you kind of feel betrayed, kind of
Nathan felt betrayed. I 100% fell for it. I was like, "What is this jerk doing?"
Yeah. I know, but she kind of convinces them all to have a toast for bygones be bygones, but they end up filling the toast glasses with hot sauce.
Yeah,
really really bad hot sauce. Novacaine drinks it because he can't feel anything, and then the school bully gets messed up, and that basically seals the deal. That endears Novacaine to Sherry. It's it, and so he ends up going back to the apartment together, to Novacaine's apartment, where she learns that Novacaine has been studying a lot, which is important. He ends up studying a lot of medical. He's a little bit of a nerd. He's a little bit of a loner, but he ends up studying all these medical books because he has to learn how to doctor himself if he has a problem, and just in case he causes something major, which he ends up doing through the whole movie, where he's trying to stitch himself together.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So it's
it fits together there,
and then we learn that he is also. Whenever they have a little bit of a love-making scene, and they end up getting Novacaine's shirt off, and they learn that Novacaine has been tattooing himself. So he ends up revealing the tattoos. He ends up being a little bit embarrassed by it, because it's like a fantasy tattoo. It's all these
weirdest thing.
And but it's left a section of it in the middle,
in the chest,
where in the chest section, where he's like, well, I don't know how the story ends, so. I haven't filled it out yet, and it's a little bit of foreshadowing for later in the movie. But and then they end up having this the sex scene where she's just like, oh, you can't feel pain, but can you feel this?
Well, okay, so
and
then
he's like,
it's not really a full blown scene.
Yeah, right.
You just like
it fades black before we see anything like major. But he's like, I'm feeling something,
which
you don't know
absolutely.
But you don't know if he's just you don't know. I mean, because he can feel like, but he might have been talking about internal. You know what I mean? He might have been like, I feel something deep in my heart for you. You know?
Yeah, because that's exactly what you need for that. That's
yeah.
exactly what you need for that. Moving on.
It was moving on. So we go to the next day, and then Novacaine's having the best day of his life. He is just like in love with this girl. His life makes sense. He's finally living for something more than just playing this World of Warcraft game with his buddies.
Yeah,
you know?
And being middle management.
And then that's when the Santa Clauses come in, and then the bank robbery happens. Mm-hmm. The main manager, in an effort to get into the bank safe, ends up being killed, and then they trying to beat it out of Novacaine to get the
backup,
the backup to get in the safe, and they use it. They threaten Sherry, in order to get him to spill the beans. So he spills it. They get the money, and then they basically take Sherry as a hostage to end up getting out of the bank.
Then they do the most badass thing.
Yeah.
Right? They step outside of the bank, and they just gun everybody down.
They gun out all the police officers, which is fun. It is a funny scene, but it's like...
These are professionals.
Right.
The police are professionals.
But if you're going to do that, which I mean, we understand why they end up taking Sherry anyway. But if you're going to do that, if you're just going to walk out and just mow them all down,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they needed it just for that quick diversion, like where they see the hostage, they're not firing immediately, and then they can use it to kill them all.
But we have to remember too, the reason why it took so long for the police to get there is because it's the holidays and everybody's off, and,
right? Yeah,
and we're spread thin. You know?
So that happens. They kill the police officers. They end up
a very Call of Duty moment.
And they end up running off in the distance. And our Novacaine decides that I'm not going to take this sitting down. I can't wait for the police to go rescue this hostage because almost all hostages end up dying. And he's like, Sherry makes my life make more sense. We got to go save her. So he ends up helping out this one police officer by tying off, applying pressure to this gunshot wound, tourniquet to the wound, stealing his police car and dashing off after the bad guys. And then basically from this point onward, we have just several action scenes, almost just like one after the other, just like
it's time to really dig into what Novacaine's superpower is.
Yeah, right. And so out of these scenes, I mean, so we have the first one is he ends up catching up to bad guy number one. He ends up chasing him. They end up splitting off because there's two cars. He doesn't know which car Sherry's in. They end up taking a fork, and so he ends up chasing this other car off into this alley eventually, and eventually end up in this restaurant, in this kitchen of this restaurant.
Probably the best scene, sequence, in the whole movie.
Yeah,
right there.
That fight scene, I think, was because they just go full stop, because that's when they really start pushing like how crazy Novacaine really is.
Yeah,
and
they really do. You're right. They go all out in that very first scene.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, let's hurt this guy to near max.
Yes.
Right now, so that you really get the impact of how bad his situation really is.
Right. Absolutely. And some of the better things. I mean, they're chasing around the kitchen. I mean, the best thing is Novacaine eventually grabs a skillet that's been a cast iron skillet that's been cooking stuff full on. Grabs it and he swings at the guy, but the guy ends up catching it, stopping it, but it burns his hands like crazy, and that shot was really good. He ended up just throwing tons of stuff, flour ends up being involved,
stuff like that.
Nathan
gets punched multiple times, he just keeps going.
Yeah.
He's like, "Why are you not stopping?"
Yeah, and then we end up with the scene where the gun that the bad guy had somehow ends up falling into the fryers.
Yeah.
Anyways, Novacaine just looks down. He just grabs the gun. He doesn't pick the tray up.
No.
And then gets the gun out.
He just dives right in it's a bucket of water.
And it messes his hands up.
It's disgusting looking too.
It ends up and then basically they end up struggling, and the guy gets him getting shot. And then Novacaine is just like, oh man, I just killed this guy. I threw up. Not camera's dead. Okay, all right, everybody. The camera's dead. We're gonna take a little pause. We're gonna go back for part 2. All right, everybody. So we're back for part 2. So we were just talking about the guy gets shot inside the restaurant scene. He ends up dying. Novacaine ends up first time he ever killed anybody. He ends up throwing up. Which is your favorite part of any movie you see.
Okay, so that's one thing that absolutely lost a point for me is I do not like puke in a movie.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it.
Yeah.
First of all, it's very tough to make it look like it's real puke.
Yep.
Like when something just dribbles out of my mouth, it's not real puke.
Yeah.
Second of all, it makes me want to hurl too, which is not something I want to experience.
Yeah, but I know it's funny. I think we should just go watch it.
It's the same issue I had with Mickey 17.
Yeah.
It's just like we have these really cool, interesting scenes, and then you just want to make it disgusting.
Yeah.
Which is not what we're after in this movie. We're after like gory
violence,
violent.
Right. Yeah, but I know.
But that does bring up a point for Nathan's character, right? That first death that he has really messes with him.
Right.
Like he is emotionally distraught.
Yeah.
But for only that one.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which makes me think that Nathan is not a very good character.
Yeah.
He's not a very good person.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, also he killed a guy, but I mean, they are people that just gunned down a ton of police officers and just killed a bunch of people, someone that he knew in cold blood. While he does have the remorse for killing, I think that pretty much after that he's like, all right, well now it's time to just kill all these murderers. I don't think it makes him a bad person, but it does make him go. It does make him go
I think he's just about as crazy as Sherry. To be honest,
he got right back into it though. But he was ready. The adrenaline was going through his veins because he was
taking epinephrine.
Yes, right. Yes.
Honestly, the title of the movie should have been Novacaine, and then epinephrine underneath it.
Right, absolutely.
As many plot points as they used that.
Yeah, where he injects himself that little extra push to get him through. So, but basically, he ends up finding a tattoo on the main guy's arm. He ends up getting a lead where he gets the help of his online gamer friend Roscoe to figure out where this guy got this tattoo from. So he ends up going to this tattoo parlor for basically action scene number 2, where he's going to try to question the tattoo guy as to who this guy was that he gave these tattoos to, right?
Point number 2, why Nathan is a little bit messed up, because he basically tortures the guy to get the information out, and he has no problem doing it.
Yeah, I know. But in this guy, I mean, he could be maybe a bad guy, I mean, obviously, but also it's
he had a symbol on him that kind of
it indicated it. Kind of basically, well, it's okay. It's fine. He is a Nazi, so it's fine. We can get him.
Yeah.
So because he actually had the symbol here tattooed.
Yeah.
And so Nathan's like, all right. So basically then action had a couple things. That's where we get some of the slow-mo glass scenes. So basically, the guy Nathan basically blows it because he's trying to question the guy to find out who robber number 2 is. The guy gets onto him, goes to grab a machete, comes back, and then they start scuffling. We get some really cool scenes where Nathan gets grabbed, thrown into a mirror,
and then the mirror shatters. But I think they focused on the wrong thing, right? They focused more on the glittery, shattery pieces rather than him being hit.
Yeah.
I think if they would have focused on kind of like a slow motion reaction of his body smashing into it, and then maybe the glass breaking into him or something, we would have had more of an impact. But really, it was just him bouncing off and then all the glass.
And then all the slow-mo glass stuff,
It's almost like they hit it at the wrong point.
Yeah, and...
Which is probably why it was funny.
Funny. Which is probably why. I mean... But then he ends up getting this idea where he's like, hey, I'm Novacaine. I'm invincible. So he ends up taking his hands, he ends up punching all the glass. And he ends up making, these basically gauntlets, these glass gauntlets out of his own hands, which he ends up using to jump up and basically rake the guy in the eyes.
Yeah.
So the guy can't see anything. And and then after he's down on the floor, he can't see, he's been blinded. And Novacaine ends up getting the tattoo gun, and was like, hey, you really need to tell me, give me the information. He's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And so he ends up.
He goes after the symbol, doesn't he?
Yeah, he ends up taking out the Nazi symbol right there. He ends up just raking that tattoo gun across that over and over and over again.
This is like a big burly biker guy.
Yeah. And it's
little bitty, skinny, scrawny Nathan is just on top of him doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
He's messed up, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's a good scene. So he learns who it was, and we end up finding out where this guy lives through a couple of plot contrivances.
The main villain.
Right. Well, first he finds out kind of like where we found out where bad guy number 2 lives. And we ends up going to his house, where this basically plays out as like bad guy number 2 like booby trapped his house.
No, so it was bad guy number 1.
Oh, it was bad guy number 1. So the brother comes
Nathan
in
found the name of bad guy number 1 and where he got the tattoo,
right?
Which led to fight scene number 2.
Yeah, right.
And then he goes to the house.
To the house of bad guy number 1. Right. That's true. And bad guy number 2 is his brother. And bad guy number 2 is also concerned that bad guy number 1 isn't showing up to the hideout because he's basically like, all right, it's been forever. Where's bad guy number 1? Well, he's dead in a restaurant, So he ends up going back to his brother's house as well to go
bad guy number 2.
Bad guy number 2 to see if his brother showed up there.
Yeah.
And also that's where Novacaine's going to go, trying to search for clues.
And then right before we get to that point, is that when it happens?
Yeah, I would say that it either happens like right before he leaves, but basically we can kind of talk about it. So at the hideout, so as bad guy number 2 is going off to meet Novacaine in bad guy number 1's house, we kind of reveal that Sherry is in on it the whole time.
She's in on it.
Yeah, she is
the big twist.
Yeah, she's the sister of the main big bad guy whose name is Simon. But the thing is that she was so won over by Novacaine's heart, his heart of gold, that she ends up having doubts about the whole thing. And so she's just like, she's like, usually, I don't really care. Like, it kind of stinks that you kill people.
She really wanted to be on that tattoo mat.
Yeah,
she
I know.
really wanted to be on that tattoo.
But that's what it is. So there ends up being some fighting because she's just like, hey, you're not supposed to kill anybody on this mission. You've been killing people like left and right, and we don't need to do that. And Simon's just like,
he's messed up.
Yeah, Simon is being played by Ray Nicholson, and Ray, hams it up, like absolutely goes as over the top as he can, where he just wants to be the most hateful, despicable person, and it's funny. He's really fun in that role.
There's one scene where he like throws Sherry some cola gummies.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You love these. Why are you not on my team? Why are you not on my side? Here, take some of these." Yeah. And then he starts chewing them, and he's like, "Oh, these are horrible." Yeah. Like he's really messed up in the brain. Yeah. Which honestly, I think he's a good parallel to Nathan. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because they do kind of have that kind of mental instability, each of them do, but in different ways.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Definitely. That's really good. But so we cut to the house, and the house is basically booby trapped. It's like Home Alone booby trapped. So we find out the bad guy number 1 was like a doomsday prepper, and so Nathan's like coming through the house, and he ends up getting like a giant medieval ball and chain like comes down and spikes him in the back, which he has to pull off. He ends up getting.
He doesn't even notice it, which is the thing. He's like,
of course.
Huh.
Yeah.
What? He's like trying to move. What is that?
Yeah. Why can't I move?
He looks back and he's like, oh. Yeah. Oh!
It's several different things. And I guess the most important one is the arrow he gets through the leg in the kitchen, which ends up playing a bigger part later. And he ends up getting an arrow through the leg in the kitchen, which he can't pull out. He's trying to get it off. It doesn't work. So he's like, and then he ends up getting stuck in a bear trap later. He ends up getting roped upside down in a bear trap in the bad guy number 1's room. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, oh, I'm stuck here. What do I do? I can't get out of this. So he ends up calling his friend Roscoe. Roscoe, we need you to come here. Cut me down. And so Roscoe's on his way. And then he's like, all right, everything should be fine. Roscoe's here. He's going to save the day. And then bad guy number 2 comes in. and finds him up there.
Yep.
You know, and of course Novacaine can't lie his way out of it. So, but Novacaine does like trick him into being like, oh no, like if you're gonna kill me, you know, your brother's dead. If you're gonna kill me, you
might as well enjoy it.
Make it quick. No, he says, please make it quick.
Oh, that's right.
Please kill me really fast.
See,
and
it's that
and then,
mental
And then,
mishap, you know, that trickery that he has as part of his character.
And then so bad guy number 2 cuts him down. It's like going to torture him, and it's actually a really funny scene where everything that he does, like Novacaine has to pretend like he's
like,
hurt.
oh, that hurts. Don't do it again.
Please, no, God, it's the worst.
To buy time.
Yeah, to buy time
for his buddy to come.
Yeah, and which comes in with, I mean, really gruesome, like nail ripping off scene that messed with a lot of our friends that went to go see it.
I watched it. The cool point. Here's the thing about that one scene is like, you could tell that whatever Nathan was wearing was like one of those clear plastic cooking gloves that was all doctored up. If you looked at it really closely.
Yes. So it's kind of funny. And there's a couple practical effects that looks pretty good through the movie. There's a couple things that don't look good. But regardless, so
the scene with
So, but basically, you know, then that kind of happens where Roscoe ends up coming to save the day. Right before the guy starts to gouge out Novacaine's eyes, Roscoe comes in the nick of time, hits him in the head, knocks him out. Where we think that's done. So they end up getting a phone number contact to the big bad guy to find out where he's staying. And as they're leaving, bad guy number 2 decides to do that really sneaky like jump scare attack from the room. So the camera kind of comes down the hallway. Roscoe ends up leaving the room, and Novacaine's like coming to leave, and all of a sudden you see the gun, the butt of the gun just smack Novacaine right in the face.
Yep.
And it impact,
jars
that's
him.
like, it's crazy. Yeah. And then this big fight scene happens where we get probably the craziest kill scene in the entire movie, where Novacaine has like him like in between his legs.
Yes.
Yes. And he ends up stabbing him through the neck with the arrow. And he ends up smashing the arrow like through his other leg as well, in order just to like clinch it. You know,
bad guy number 2 is locked in between Nathan's
legs,
like this with the arrow.
Yeah.
But listen, if he killed him like that personal, that close, he should have had some kind of character hiccup where he was like, "Oh, this is messed up."
No, he was done. He killed the first guy. He was a little weird about the first guy. It's fine.
I guess it was the torture.
Once you kill one person, you're fine. You don't have any problems anymore. But then, so basically that happens. And then Roscoe, the police kind of show up. The police have been trailing Novacaine through the movie. A couple of detectives, a detective called Mincy and Coltrane. So Coltrane is just another Monday. Every day's a Monday
hilarious.
for Coltrane. But they're not really important, I think, for our overall discussion. But they basically are trailing him through the movie, and they trail him to the house. Roscoe ends up posing as the main character, help Novacaine get away, and which is important because Mincy and Coltrane capture Roscoe, and then they get Roscoe to spill the beans on where
Roscoe is just like, I'll tell you anything.
He spills the beans on where Novacaine's going, and so Novacaine ends up going to the hideout of the main bad guy Simon, and where Simon and Sherry are staying, which is basically this automobile
auto
workshop.
Yeah.
And we get there, and then basically we have the confrontation where Novacaine comes in and is like, "Hey, I'm here to save the day. All your buddies are dead." And then Simon's just like, "I cannot believe you did all of this for her."
Yeah.
You idiot. You know,
that's when Nathan
she's in
figures
on
it
it.
out.
And then Nathan figures it out. And then he, but, you know, and then there's like this conflict, and Novacaine almost gets his head crushed from getting a car lowered down on his head, and Sherry ends up saving him. Ends up saving him, and she's about to get killed when our detectives bust in. They shoot the bad guy in the stomach. Bad guy goes down. The day looks saved. And I will say, at that point in time, I was like, that seems like a very low energy, low key way of ending this movie.
Yeah,
and it did kind of feel like an ending to the movie.
It was the "You've killed Bowser."
Yeah,
kind of princess is in another castle.
Yeah, but it was fine, and so then it was just like, oh, okay, well, there we go. You know, bad guys shot. You know, that's just get everybody in the police car and go for it. You know, but what happens? Bad guy's not really dead. So
Nope.
he pops up, kills
Grabs the
Coltrane. Unfortunately, shoots Coltrane through the throat. He's dead.
R.I.P.
Shoots Mincy. She ends up getting really injured, and he ends up once again getting in the ambulance. So the ambulance was pulled up to basically help out Novacaine because Novacaine's like almost dead, and so
Simon.
Yeah, Simon comes in, kills the ambulance drivers, hops in, takes off, doesn't know Novacaine's been loaded into that thing. And then so Sherry and Mincy, the wounded Mincy and Roscoe, end up trailing behind him.
Yeah, Sherry's like, hey, I'm going to help you out.
Yeah.
Because I have an awesome change of heart all of a sudden.
Yeah, yep. And so Novacaine comes to in the ambulance, and we have the great scene where he realizes he's cuffed to the seat, and he ends up, in order to get his cuff out, he ends up snapping his thumb.
But he snaps it backwards.
To then,
which makes no sense because the cuff,
to pull it
this way
through, pull like the thumb through the cuff.
Yeah, which they conveniently don't show because it would not work scientifically.
Yeah.
If he was to break it, it would have to break inward so that he would pop it out and then slide it over.
Yeah,
because his thumb is still out like at pretty much a 90-degree angle, or not even 90, but like a 180-degree angle. When his cuff gets off of it.
Yeah, but it's just a cool visual. They just wanted him to show how much of a badass he was. He doesn't matter. He can just snap or something. So that happens. The Simon realizes he's back there. He can't believe he's stuck with them. He ends up kind of swerving, trying to knock Novacaine around. They have some exchanges. He tries to but Novacaine ends up like he doesn't have any more bullets in the gun he has. So he ends up like he's like, I'm gonna use those that machine, the EKG machine, to electrocute Simon, which he does, which causes the
whole ambulance to
flip over because Simon's planning on like escaping. He's going to drive up on this getaway boat to drive to go off to some other country. But and then basically in the wreckage of that wreck is where we have the final scene where Simon messes Novacaine up pretty bad. He ends up completely
shattering
his arm, like snapping it
with spiky point out.
Yeah, so that's important because he has a little bone sticking out, and
which he should have been dead,
right?
And bled out because there's an artery,
yeah. But so Sherry comes in last minute, shoots Simon a little bit, but Simon lives, or she tries to shoot at him. And then like Novacaine's laying there like bleeding with his broken, snapped off arm, and then Simon's sitting there trying to like choke out Sherry, and then
EpiPen number 2,
EpiPen number 2 or 3. It might even been the third time he did it. So he ended up doing it, and he runs up to Simon, and he basically takes his bone thing and shoves it through his through his mouth up into his brain, kills him. And that's the final thing.
By like the way that's like the most like gruesome scene.
Yeah,
like they really hit the top of the bar right there.
Yes, and then that basically is the movie. We have a kind of a fake out death scene where we're like, Novacaine could probably is dead. Yeah, he probably should have, but he survives because we want to have a happy ending on this. No. So Mincy's fine, Sherry's fine. Roscoe's fine. Everybody's fine. We have like a couple heartwarming scenes in the hospital. Where
Mincy comes in and says, "Hey, what you did was very valiant. We're just gonna give you a minor sentence."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, because that's how it works. Like if you're gonna go fight a bad guy, literally, take a cop's gun. And quite literally steal his car, you're gonna get off with a light sentence because you stabbed the dude.
Right? Yes, exactly. So, but it's fine. And then he goes and visits Sherry, who doesn't get off with a light sentence. She's in jail, and we basically revealed that he's finished his tattoo. So on in the little center part of the tattoo, it has him, the valiant knight, like you said, rescuing his princess.
Yep.
Who's her in the window of this.
And that's the end.
And it's basically the end. And he enjoys another bite of his pie. So and it's basically a cute movie. There's nothing there. I mean, it's kind of fun. It was definitely like an enjoyable ride. Mm-hmm. But once again, like we just kind of talked about like things that happened, but outside of just like some fun moments, I don't think there's anything that in there that's like that like deep or like spurs like like a deeper conversation. It's just basically like, hey, here's this scene's cool, this scene's cool, this scene's
Other than
cool.
the fact that Nathan is just not a good guy.
Yeah,
To be honest, he's a little messed up.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Is there anything you would have changed with the movie?
Changed? I don't know. I mean, well, here's the deal. I will say that I've seen one other movie that's in this vein, this kind of horror meets action like movie kind of hybrid, and that's from some of the guys who made The Raid. So some of the movies that those gentlemen have like done in the wake of the Raid films have done that. Like there's a movie called The Night Comes for Us, which is like a slasher, like it's like a kung fu movie, but it's a slasher.
Yeah,
and it goes way above like what Novacaine does. Like it's just insane, some of the stuff they do. And I think that's basically it. Like I feel like it was fun, but it was as far as you could push this while it being something that would like air at the Cinemark, you know? And I feel like maybe it just wasn't as extreme as it needed to be for it to be like really crazy, where I'm like, hey, I watched something that I couldn't even believe it just blew me away.
Absolutely.
It didn't blow me away. Like it still was within the realm of what I expected.
Yeah.
So maybe I would like want it to maybe just go even more over the top sometimes with some of the action scenes. I think they were good, but not incredible.
So
and maybe that's
so you wanted to see Nathan with his arm cut off or something, slapping him with his other arm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how far
you
wanted
the top
it to go.
Stuff. Yeah. Just go really fun, just really over the top with it. I think it would have been even more interesting, or at least
like
more
you
memorable.
said, you couldn't put that in theaters and have
not the big ones.
No.
You know, it would be like at the smaller theaters, but it would be cool. I mean, it would just be appealed to me a little bit more. But what about you?
There's one thing I wish they would have changed. I think Nathan should have died. Everything that he'd gone through.
Yeah.
There's no way that humanly possible he could have survived all of that. And I am kind of personally a person who likes those kind of like surprising, jarring, everybody dies endings type things. Yeah. And so he should have, it would have been a much better movie to me personally if he actually would have passed away.
Yeah.
At the ambulance scene.
Yeah. Yeah, because he did what was right. You know, and even not knowing that, because when he found out Sherry was bad, he still fought to do the right thing. So
Something else I wish they would have done. Bitten his tongue.
Yeah.
He mentions that multiple times.
That's the last thing we'll end on. Is like through the whole thing, it's like, you know, he's talking about like, oh, I don't want to eat the pie because I'm afraid I'll bite my tongue off. So the very last scene is like him taking another bite of the pie, and every person in that thing was him bite his tongue, but which would have meant that him living would have been a huge payoff if it ended with the tongue biting.
Yeah,
off.
exactly.
It would have been funny, but
So I wish that maybe there's an alternate ending where he does, and he's just like blood trickling down his mouth, and he's like, huh?
And then that's it.
And then that's it. That would have been a perfect ending for it.
But I think as it stands, I think that's basically it. So I think I'm still gonna stick. I think I'm still gonna stick with a 7, but I think 6.5.
6.5. It was fun.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it. Watch it in theaters if you can. If you can't, definitely hang out with your buddies and watch it together.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll see you on the next episode of Matt Mikes.
You guys have a great one. Let us know what you think below if you've seen it or not, and see you on the clip side.